Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Onion Soup, the show where we pull back the layers of metaphysics and reality in order to demystify spirituality. And today I'm extremely excited because this is a topic that really thoroughly interests me. We have Miss Rissa Miller. She is a tea leaf reader and she's also a smoke reader. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So, just getting right into it, what is tea leaf reading?
So it is a very ancient form of divination, and it's a form of scrying. And when I say scrying, most of your listeners are going to imagine, a fortune teller with a crystal ball. But
Mhm.
scrying is any act of gazing into a surface of any kind and receiving messages in that way from spirit. So that sounds very mystical, but honestly, people have been doing it since there was recorded history. People did it on literally every continent where there were people. Um, I can give you examples from South America, Africa, Europe, the United States, or what, North America. It's kind of always been a part of humanity to scry. So tea leaf reading itself, nobody knows its origin. Maybe India, maybe China, maybe the Middle East. Nobody knows. It's sort of lost to history. But the idea is that you drink a cup of loose tea. It has to be loose. It can't be in a tea bag, and then you turn the cup and you read the symbols that are there. And I have a cup of tea here, and I'll try to drink it real quick so I can do a demonstration for you.
Okay, also, because that was a part of my question. I was wondering if I drink a lot of loose leaf tea, and
Hmm.
I was wondering if it had to be just sitting loosely in the glass because I use
Yep.
like the bag or something. Okay. Does the type of tea matter?
It only matters in that you have to be able to see it in your cup. It's a practical thing. My favorite is black tea. It's just easy to see against a white cup. The contrast is good. I'm 48 years old, so my eyes aren't what they used to be. So that said, I like a nice contrast between the tea and the cup. There are
Yeah.
people who do it with all different kinds of tea. The black tea is just, for me, easier to see. I mean, you can, if you don't do caffeine, mint tea is also very easy to see in the cup because it shows a nice contrast.
So when you're doing the divination for the teas, are you is it specific towards the person that's drinking the tea, or are you able to just read pretty much anything from your own glass?
I don't read for myself, to be totally honest with you. I don't think I can be impartial. And I don't read for people I'm very close to either. My mom and dad, my brother, my good friends. I don't read for people I'm close to. I'm always going to be rooting for them, and I'm never going to want to tell them honestly if I see something challenging in their cup. So that's why I can't answer that part of that question. But so as far as who drinks the tea, it's very helpful if the querent drinks their own tea.
Mm,
And it's honestly, I use a small cup for this.
mm,
You can kind of see it's like a classic English teacup.
yeah.
Um, the Asian cups work as well, but they generally don't have handles, so I approach them a little differently. So that said, a traditional teacup is a very small portion. Let me move it back so you can see it in relationship to me. You can see how little it is. Most Americans think of a teacup as like this giant, huge coffee mug. It's a totally
Yes.
different thing. It's literally 2 to 3 times larger. So if you can drink your own tea, it will leave your energetic impression on the cup.
Hmm.
And the trickiest part is turning it. So let me finish drinking this real quick and I'll show you what that looks like.
Yeah, for sure. So while you finish that, I was kind of curious about when you said it transcends like history and it goes throughout ancient history. Are
Mhm.
there, and there's no particular origin, but when you're doing your own divinations and your own styles, is there like one area that you particularly focus on or one historical relevance?
Well, I am a historian, so I love all of the aspects of history. The one thing I definitely always like to say is history is a perspective.
Mm,
And I learned that a long time ago in high school when I had a teacher who said, I want you to think about World War II. Now
mm,
imagine you grew up in Germany and suddenly your perspective changes totally.
yeah.
So, and then he also then challenged, like, what if you grew up in North Africa during World War II? What if you grew up in Japan? So, history is a perspective. That said, what I like to bring to my divination is simply an open mind. When I'm reading for a querent, for a seeker, someone besides a demonstration like this,
Mm,
what I'm looking for is what's important for them. It's not about me. It's about what's important for them. What messages do they need to hear? What do they need to reflect on? And sometimes who's coming through for them. And, you know, the way spirit works, I'm sure you know this, is that everything is on the table. And that's what, I am a third generation tarot reader, but what I
mm,
really love about scrying, whether it's in tea or smoke, is that everything is on the table. There's
yes.
not 78 meanings to look at. Everything's on the table. And all kinds of pictures come up. Oh my gosh, Dexter, you wouldn't believe it. I have had Sasquatch playing guitar in my cup.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at it and I thought, wow, I must be getting tired. Like, this can't be right. And sure enough, when I asked the young woman, that was her boyfriend.
Hmm.
He likes to dress up like Sasquatch and he plays in a band like that. I would have never guessed in a million years that that's what that was about. I had another example where there was an iguana with a martini glass, and I thought, this can't be right. What is this? Turns out the gentleman I was reading for, I guess his mom was a bit of a character, and he and his siblings called her the reptile.
Oh,
And
wow.
she liked to drink a martini every night. So surely that was messages, those kinds of messages for those individuals. And you can never put a true definition on it. You have to kind of read what shows up in the cup each time.
Wow, that's so interesting. And it's funny because I was actually going to ask you why lean into tea leaf reading aside from like tarot or other forms of divination.
Mhm.
But you're right. Sometimes we get into the deck and we set 78 reasons. For people who aren't familiar, the tarot deck has 78 cards in it. And it can sometimes get a little overwhelming for, I wouldn't say necessarily for the reader, but for the person that's being read. It can be a little overwhelming to have all these cards placed in front of you, and sometimes you don't know, I guess, really what's going on. For as a reader perspective, you never had your cards read before. But are there any other forms of divination that you use, that you utilize, as
Mhm.
far as with tea leaves? Like, does the cup itself matter, or do you just pick a random one that day?
Only that it's a practical cup. It has to have this curved bottom, and it's nice if it's shallow because if it gets too deep, you can't see the shadows kind of cast over the bottom.
Hmm.
And the curved bottom, you'll see in a second when I turn it, you'll see why it needs the curve. Whereas like a coffee mug has the straight sides and the ridge at the bottom, all the tea kind of globs up in those ridges. So if you want to try this, you're going to have to scour like yard sales and Goodwills or an antique store, I guess, to find cups like this. And like I said, the little Asian teacups, which are available at most Asian grocers and places like that, they work too. But you just have to both read and drink without a handle. But again, as long as they're shallow and have the curve at the bottom, they'll work just fine. They do sell cups called the Cup of Destiny. I have one, but it's not where I'm at right now. That have symbols on the inside, and if you want to learn to read, that's one way to do it. When I started, there was no such thing. But yeah, 30 years ago, I didn't have that. I just had my brain. And basically, it gives you a guide to the symbols, like where the T lands. You can read it that way. So I read it a little differently, and I'm ready to turn the cup if you want to see.
Sure, yeah.
So there's the loose tea is in the bottom, and there's a little bit of liquid. You have to leave a little bit of liquid. If it's too dry, it won't stick to the cup.
Hmm.
And then I use a paper towel and the saucer. You don't have to have a match set, by the way. If you go into your local Goodwill and the set doesn't match, it doesn't matter to the tea at all.
I'm still here. I just wanted to put you
Oh,
on the spotlight.
I was like, wait, what happened? Did she disappear? Okay, so here we go. I hold it like this. You have to keep a nice firm grip or you'll have tea everywhere. And I'm going to move my microphone back just a little.
Mhm.
And then you get a nice swish going on like this. It doesn't actually matter if it's a circle. You can do it any way that feels good. You just have to make a big enough movement that the tea is going to get all inside the cup. And then very quickly, you invert it. And you can see the napkin kind of caught the loose tea. And then when you pull it up, the tea is all over the inside.
Wow.
Let me sit that down, get back over here. So then the second part of my process is that I draw all of my cups. And I have some of my drawings here to show you. This is how I taught myself to read tea leaves. So I draw all of the symbols inside every one of my cups.
Wow.
And this is what all of my seekers, my querents, take with them. Instead of, a picture of their tarot cards, they get a pen and ink drawing of their own original set of symbols from their reading. And I always say that you can use this as a map. And you can see how all the drawings look very different because every cup is usually 100% unique.
Wow. Interesting. So, what did you read in this current cup?
I haven't even looked at it yet. Hang on. So when I use the handle to read, I always say that starts with the person. So this is how the person is showing up right now. Now I didn't drink this cup or turn it with any intention except to show it to you. Mm-hmm. So I would say that the first thing I see here is an eagle. And that would tell me this person is showing up very much in their power. They're very confident and they're moving forward pretty boldly into what they're going into. Mm-hmm. So then from there, I divide the cup in half. And this half is the emotional side, and this half is about their material world. Now, I put a little more emphasis on the emotional side because how we see the world colors it entirely. It's kind of like it's not what you look at, it's what you see.
Right.
That's why I put a little more emphasis on the emotional side. So if this were somebody's cup, I would tell them that they are going forward emotionally with grace. There's also the initial M in here for somebody, if this was a cup. But then there gets to be some blockage at the back. Do you see these like big globs? Mm-hmm. So this person would be kind of moving forward with grace and power, but not necessarily allowing new things into their emotional world. So it could be that they are already busy, or they simply don't want any more friends, or they're not looking for a new companion, or there's a reason something happened that they don't want that. That's just a very brief overview of what that looks like. And then getting into the other side of it, I see a person literally sitting working. So my guess is that if this were someone's cup, they're not looking for new stuff in their emotional work, as they're very focused on their career or education. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of open space in that side too. Like they are ready to grow either professionally or in their education versus worrying about expanding their social circle. Mm. That's very quick. Like I said, I would normally sit down for a half an hour with a cup and do one of these drawings.
I tell you that my last name is actually Morton, so you said the initial M. I was like, that's and that obviously very much resonated with a lot of what's going on in my life. So I don't know if that was supposed to be me, but I find it very fascinating because I am actually pushing my career forward. And I did a lot of work emotionally earlier on, just to kind of get myself ready for the things that the universe and spirit and my guides kind of had for me. But yeah, I've kind of I wouldn't say I closed myself off to that, but it's more the fact that I more so want to just focus on bringing the things into light. So that was really interesting. Really interesting reading. I was like, oh, wow, that was really, really great. So go ahead.
And maybe it was for you, because I know this doesn't look exactly like what I'm going through right now. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that was pretty much spot on. So what about the tea leaves that are left on the napkin? Does that mean anything at all?
I don't read them. Some people read those instead. Like some people fully read what's on the saucer. And I know a lot of folks who read coffee. There's a Middle Eastern tradition of reading what's on the saucer instead of what's left in the cup. But That's just not how I personally read, and it's very, very unique how each person who does tasseography, which is tea leaf reading, coffee reading, they all do it separate. Like we're all very individual in how we approach it. There are even people who, this is like super hipster, I guess, who read juice grounds. Like, when you make fresh juice that leaves grinds in your cup, there are people who read those too.
So
So there's all different kinds of ways to approach tasseography.
that's interesting. I've never heard that word for either tasseography. What does that?
Mhm.
What that means?
It means cup writing. It
Oh,
is half French, half Greek, and it means cup writing.
okay. So I was actually curious because I had someone who was reading cacao. So
Uh huh.
when you have fresh cacao, it actually leaves ground at the
Yep.
bottom of the cup.
Yep.
And told me that you can actually read those as well, similar to tea leaf reading. And I was not familiar with it at all. So
Mhm.
that
The cacao looks a lot more like coffee.
Mhm.
They all look a little different in the cup, and cacao and coffee have very similar looks, and they leave a lot of ring patterns. So people who read coffee and cacao are really good at reading ring patterns.
Interesting. Interesting. What do you mean by ring patterns?
So if you look at this, hang on, I don't want to pour water on my computer. If you look at this cup, there are no rings. There are no circles on at all. But if I had, I don't actually drink coffee, but if I had done a coffee ground or cacao grounds in the cup, there would be circle after circle on the inside. Most likely, that's just how those particular grounds, the texture of them, sticks to a cup.
Hmm.
It's
That's
it's a technical thing
interesting.
for whatever reason. Yeah.
Wonder if that helps with reading, like almost like the circle of life or the circle of one's path. As people go through their journey.
It's just a different look. But yeah.
So we're going to take a really quick commercial break, but I'm really excited for the next half because I have another question about like smoke reading and
Uh-huh.
things. Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. So the first half we talked all about tea leaf reading, and I had a really good reading. I'm really excited about it. I'm gonna take that for myself. I feel like that was just great. But
You are welcome to it, Dexter. I mean, I did pour the cup, and I was thinking about the show, and I was like, I hope that this cup is exactly what we need for the show, and maybe it's exactly what we needed for you.
yeah, for sure. It's so crazy. I've had a couple of people come on and people who do tarot, people who see auras, and it's just really
Mhm.
fascinating just to get everybody's different takes on really what's going on. And I feel I'm taking a lot away just from my own personal life, and I hope everyone else is also taking things away as well. But you also do smoke readings,
I
right?
do.
So can you tell us a little bit about that?
I would love to. So it is another form of scrying, and I use the same symbol language for both.
Mm,
So basically, if you're going to do any kind of scrying, you have to be able to look at patterns and read them. And if that sounds complicated, it can be. Basically, you have to train your brain to read symbols, like you would train your brain to read another language.
mm,
And I started doing this many, many years ago. Okay, many decades ago. But once you know a symbol language, you can apply it to anything. You can scry in water. You can scry in smoke. You can scry with tea or coffee or juice grounds. Or you can scry looking at clouds. Basically, once you know a language of symbols and you can interpret it and you trust yourself, which is the biggest part, I think, you're ready to go with any kind of scrying. And also, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I've never scried in a crystal ball. I never have. I don't know that I've seen very many real crystal balls in my whole life. Most of them are plastic now, and I feel like scrying in plastic doesn't sound very. It doesn't sound good to me. So I've never tried it. But that said, so there's a lot of ways to approach smoke scrying. It's in the pyromancy family. And you can gaze into fire. You can gaze into a candle. You can look at the embers after smoke, after the fire dies down. All of these are completely valid ways to divine. And smoke is my favorite. My smoke drawings look like this.
Okay.
This is from Candle Soot,
Hmm.
and here's the practical thing. You have to find candles that don't have a smokeless wick. So most really nice, classy candles these days have a smokeless wick.
Hmm.
And that's great because it doesn't leave soot all over your house. Unfortunately, if you want the smoke to leave a soot drawing on a page, it's not going to work. So you have to find a candle that still has the wick like this that just doesn't isn't nice and isn't really nice. So um, the dollar store, if you've got one, is a great place to find those kinds of candles.
Interesting.
But all of that said, there are many different ways to approach smoke reading. Some people simply gaze into smoke. And if you want to do that with your incense during meditation, that's a great way to do it. In fact, incense smoke, called libonomancy, is a whole form of divination in and of itself. And it's a great way to train yourself to see symbols. Smoke from incense will definitely take shapes. It will move. It will, if you speak to it and you're really in tune with your spirit guides, it will change shape right in front of you and answer your questions in real time. But it will answer them in a symbol language. It won't be like the answer is yes. It's not a magic 8 ball, right? So you have to pay attention, and it also moves very, very fast. So when I do smoke readings for my clients, for my seekers, I use candle smoke from a candle like the one I just held up, and then I let it capture in whatever pattern it's going to capture on a page. Now you do have to be careful of fire. All of these things are have their hazard. I'm trying to get on the camera. There we go. And you can see, just like with the tea leaf readings, these are all very different from each other. They have a very different feeling. They have different patterns. Some have the shapes of people or flowers or animals, and they're all very different. So I apply the same symbol language to these drawings, and that's what I read off of for my clients.
Interesting. So I want to talk about symbol language. Can you explain kind of how does symbol language work? Is that something that you meditate on when you see it? Is there like a book or class or something? How does that work?
Oh, you can actually get a PhD in it. There's a lot of classes.
Okay.
Remember a movie and a book called The Da Vinci Code? The movie had Tom Hanks, I think, in it.
Sure.
That professor, that character, had a PhD in symbology. So
Oh,
yes, there's a lot of ways to learn symbols, and every cultures are different, and they change over time, and they could change from person to person. This is where your intuition steps in. So I devised my own symbol language starting when I was around 16, and I first saw tea leaves in a cup. And that was an accident, by the way. My mom bought me a really fancy tea and a tea ball, like those metal tea balls, the sprainers.
mhm.
And it broke the very first time I used it. But I grew up in a small town, and this was like over 30 years ago. There was no Amazon and no Williams Sonoma. This tea was fancy, and I wasn't going to waste it. I drank it anyway. And I saw the leaves start sticking to the side of the cup. And my mom said that's a thing that people do. They read tea leaves. Now, at the time, there was no internet, there was nowhere to learn it, so I taught myself. I just started keeping a notebook of the things I saw, and over time, I assigned meanings to them. And it's the same symbol language I use today. It is my own. You won't find it in a book. And most of the tea leaf readers I know, this is how we learned. We learned on our own. We sort of, scrapped our way through it and figured out a way. Now, over time, I studied art history, I studied literature. I pulled symbols from those things. I studied different cultures and history. I pulled symbols from that. I have set about like specifically memorizing the zodiac symbols or memorizing symbols from the tarot. And I apply those things to my cups. As you learn, your teacup language, your symbol language for any kind of scrying will continue to evolve. And it's something that I do with intentionality. I intentionally learn new symbols. Like if I just say the word wolf, there are a lot of symbol meanings that come to mind. Like so many. Even different Native American tribes have different meanings for a wolf. And then when you get into other kinds of cultural meaning around the world, there's a lot more for a wolf. So you have to trust your intuition. What does the wolf mean in this cup? What's around the wolf? Is the wolf part of a story, or is the wolf representing the individual? So it's it's always one of those moments when you're looking at smoke or tea or any other kind of symbol um, situation that you have to trust yourself. You have to believe that spirit is giving you the right answer.
Wow. So, for all the listeners out there, I highly recommend that you all go check her website out. And I'm going to say this because of this. The first time that I did that, as we said earlier, that I did cacao and I actually looked into the bottom of a cup, I did see a wolf. So, the fact that you brought it up, I'm like, I think everybody really needs to go to your website because you. So, but we only have about a minute or so left. Is there anything that you want to leave with the audience before we hop off?
You know, I think one of the biggest takeaways that I have learned as a reader is to just trust your own intuition, to
Right.
really learn to trust yourself.
Well, I have to say that I'm blown away. So, I mean, I talk to a lot of people who are psychics and people who do various forms of divination, but this one was really interesting. Really excited about it.
It's a little unusual, but it's just very old.
For sure, yeah. I'm just again, it's mind blowing to me just getting into tea leaf reading. I mean, you brought up the wolf is just blowing my mind right now, just because that was something that actually happened. And even as far as the tea leaf reading, that is something that's currently going on in my life. So wow, just very impressed. Thank you so much for coming on, and I truly
Thank
appreciate
you for having me.
it. And thank you everyone for watching this episode of Onion Soup. Have a great one. Bye.